Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Jesse. A few more relatively minor things have been happening for the Orioles over the past week and a half or so that we have not been able to cover here. But so far, the Orioles have just made recently the biggest move so far in this young off season. And I was going to talk about it for a bit on this episode. The Orioles have traded Grayson Rodriguez to the Angels in exchange for Taylor Ward. Now, there are a few notable things about this exchange that I think are pretty interesting and that I'll talk about here for a bit. The first thing is that it is basically a one-for-one exchange, Taylor Ward for Grayson Rodriguez. There's not a lot of other, of course, there are financial considerations, but they are more or less negligible in this case. But overall, it's just a one-for-one swap between the Orioles and Angels for each of these two players. Now, there is the one big thing about this that is really notable is that the Orioles are giving up 4 years of Grayson Rodriguez for 1 year of Taylor Ward. Now, Grayson Rodriguez is signed with the Orioles through the 2029 season, whereas Taylor Ward is a contract. His contract expires at the end of this year, and then he will walk as a free agent. So the Orioles are demonstrating a willingness to part with 4 years of Grayson Rodriguez to acquire Taylor Ward, who I'll talk about a little bit more, but basically is an outfield power bat. He has a little bit of defensive versatility, which I think is always appealing to the Orioles because it maximizes the variability in the lineup constructions, I think, predominantly. Um, but yeah, so he is a little bit versatile. He has a history of playing various positions, including catcher. But predominantly, he will be playing outfield in all likelihood for the Orioles. So it is, I think that this is a notable trade. It is very interesting that this is the trade that emerges because the Orioles are getting 1 year of a player for 4 years of another player. And anytime you see a distinction like that, you would think, okay, well, maybe there's a big distinction in quality or caliber or talent level, but not in this situation. If anything, Grayson Rodriguez is probably a bit more of a talented player, pitcher, overall, if we're thinking about just raw talent, then I would say Taylor Ward is as a player. With that said, though, of course, the big glaring distinction between each of them is the health issues. Grayson Rodriguez was sidelined for the Orioles for the entire 2025 season, and his health and just well-being as a Major League Baseball player and pitcher is very much in jeopardy, given the consistent and severity, given the consistency, both the consistency and severity of the injuries that he's dealt with throughout his career and over this past year. So, given that sort of uncertainty, the Orioles decided that right now was the time to make a move and to deal him away. Now, on its surface, it is, you would think that just looking at this on paper, it does seem as if the Angels are quote unquote winning this trade. And over the 4 years of Grayson Rodriguez versus the 1 year of Taylor Ward, it is likely that Grayson Rodriguez will produce more value over the course of 4 years than Taylor Ward will be able to produce in this 1 year for the Orioles. With that said, given the extensive history of injuries, it is possible that there is something that the Orioles are finding very, very concerning in all of this that have made them more likely to deal with him now. Seemingly, his trade value is at a significant low right now, having not pitched for the entirety of 2025. So there is seemingly, you know, not many worse times to trade Grayson Rodriguez if we're trying to think about maximizing his return. This would be like a very bad time since he has not proven an ability to pitch in a major league game in over a year. With that said, Taylor Ward is not nothing. He's not a bucket of balls or anything like that. Taylor Ward definitely, and I'll talk about his profile a little bit, but he definitely has the ability to make contributions for the Orioles this year and potentially be an important contributor for this team. With that said, though, um, if Grayson Rodriguez proves and is not basically out for the entire year and is able to pitch even the equivalent of 2 years, even in stretches, right? Even if he pitches 3 months 1 year and 4 months the next, and then whatever, if he's able to put two-ish years together, his value will almost certainly exceed Taylor Ward's in just 1 year. So, if anything, the Angels, I would say, if I had to pick a winner and a loser on this trade, are quote unquote the Angels are the winners in this trade, pending that the Orioles sort of know something that the rest of the league doesn't about his medical uh, situation, about his overall health and well-being, or they have a very, very pessimistic outlook, and they think, well, they're really in a year we might be in the exact same situation with Grayson, and at that point it'll have been 2 years where he hasn't pitched. So relatively, potentially they anticipate maybe his trade value decreasing even more than where it's at right now. So the Orioles are definitely able to get a decent player, albeit only for a year, and albeit this is really just a rental in the context of having a long-term potential, a long-term piece in the rotation. And Grayson, if he was able to be healthy, is not slated to be a five starter by any stretch. He's a two or three type starter. So if you're trading someone with the upside or the possibility of being a two or three in a rotation for several years in order for a team to trade away a player like that for a solid outfielder, predominantly for 1 year, something has to be probably alarming to the Orioles to result in them trying to in them making this decision and pulling the trigger with this. So I think if you're the Angels, I think you have to be pretty optimistic. I mean, it's hard to be optimistic as an Angels fan, and even if this trade does work out in their favor, I mean, what honestly are their prospects is a very good question just in general, but if you're an Angels fan, I think that you're probably pretty happy about this exchange and this deal. I think the other thing that is sort of playing into this a little bit is, sort of maybe a shift. And I think that this offseason might mark a shift in how Mike Elias is really contemplating and thinking about the decisions, right? So, like I said, I think it is very possible that this trade is largely or mostly informed by their assessment of Grayson Rodriguez's health status. That is possible. The other possibility is it's partly that, but then it's also a shift towards emphasizing the here and now and the present rather than thinking or overemphasizing the quote unquote window that the Orioles are trying to keep open for an extended period of time. We have talked about how this team last year took a big step backwards, and it had taken a smaller step backwards the previous season, um, prior to this big step backwards season. And I think that the Orioles might be sort of and Mike Elias in particular might be trying to change the mindset or, sort of feels a little bit more urgency, whether it's for the possibilities of this team winning a World Series or whether it's for his own job security in his role. I think he probably feels a lot of pressure um, to turn this team around and show that last year was an aberration. And I think that might be where some of this is coming from. The other possibility is just that maybe he feels like there is, three good solid years the Orioles can reliably, quote unquote, reliably count on to be a World Series contender, and this is one of them, and sort of like making, even though Grayson would have been around for maybe the duration of this quote unquote window, making a move to, try to obtain immediate results for this team. So I think that also now I don't think I think that the decision is sort of being informed by both of these factors, right? By the medical assessment of Grayson Rodriguez and also the shift in sort of the urgency or the pressure that Elias is feeling to have a good season or produce results this upcoming season with this team. But with that said, I can't say that I'm sure. I think which one out of those two variables is being prioritized or which is more playing a role into their decision making about this. But I do think those are probably the two main things that the Orioles are thinking about, and that they were contemplating, and the two big factors that sort of went into this decision for the team and for Elias to make this move. So. Um, I think one of the other big things that is really, really notable about this move is that Taylor Ward feels a little bit like Tyler O'Neill. And I think that, I mean, if you look at their baseball savants, even a lot of they look somewhat similar. There are a lot of parallels in sort of their offensive profiles between the both of them. And I think that we are seeing this move because Tyler O'Neill had significant struggles with this team last year. I think now, granted, if he had had a really good season and had opted out, we would also have a similar sort of deficit. And maybe in that situation where Tyler O'Neill opts out, then, the Orioles are trading for Taylor Ward as well in that scenario. But with that said, in this scenario, or if we can imagine a scenario where the Orioles somehow have Tyler O'Neill for this upcoming season. Maybe he did not opt out for some reason, but he had a really good season last year. Or somehow, for whatever X, Y, or Z reason, he just decided to stay in the contract and not opt out. Or the Orioles had a lot of confidence he would be really good this upcoming year. I think that you're probably not going to see this move in this sort of way, or the Orioles might go for an outfielder, but maybe somebody with a different offensive profile than Taylor Ward. So that is, I think that is also part of what is going on here a little bit. It feels like we're getting Taylor Ward because of the failed Tyler O'Neill experiment, and now we need that power, we need that production, and we're gonna go get Taylor Ward to give us that because Tyler O'Neill didn't, despite our thoughts and hopes that he would. But the other big parallel between the two of them is the splits and the advantages that they have over lefties. And that's sort of also what is kind of informing what I'm thinking about a little bit with this move that they ended up making. If you look at Taylor Ward, he has against lefties he has a 918 OPS, and against righties he has a 765 OPS. So you could see sort of the combined. Tyler O'Neill had, especially in his good seasons, had very stark splits, perhaps even starker than that, but had very similar platoon splits. And that's why you kind of get the feeling, at least I get the feeling, that this is sort of a Tyler O'Neill do-over sort of move. Tyler O'Neill didn't work out, and Taylor Ward has a similar offensive profile. So we're gonna go for him and try to make him work. And give us the production that we didn't really exactly get from Tyler O'Neill, and that we might not be expecting to get this upcoming season. So the unfortunate thing about it for Taylor Ward, maybe the Orioles, it depends sort of on how their outfield looks and the depth of it sort of looks. But each of them might be cutting into each other's playing time a little bit out there in the outfield. So that'll be kind of interesting to assess. I'm going to assume that both of them are making the lineup when lefties are playing. But then there are other sacrifices that end up being made because of that, and it probably leads to a little less balance in the outfield than you would want because we sort of have a little bit of a duplicate kind of player out there. Um, but with that said, I think that is, I think the Orioles, of course, we need the power. And if we feel like Tyler O'Neill isn't going to cut it or isn't going to give it to us, it makes sense the Orioles are going to try to get it somehow, some way. And I think Taylor Ward and the move to get Taylor Ward is probably much informed by either the disappointment the Orioles have in Tyler O'Neill. And sort of it does kind of outline, I think, a little bit like what their expectations are for him this upcoming year or what they think he will produce offensively. I think if they were confident that Tyler O'Neill was going to mash lefties, hit 35 home runs, etc., I think we wouldn't be seeing this move for Taylor Ward. So um, that also is playing a large role in this. So yeah, and I think that I'm not I can't say I'm really excited about the move. I do think that the Orioles are probably a slightly better team only in 2026 because of this move. Because I think Grayson Rodriguez and his value on the pitching staff this year is very, very questionable. If it will be existent. Yeah, so I think that I do think that this sort of more or less reliably or comfortably does make the Orioles a better team in 2026, but I do think it leads to a lot of other questions for the Orioles down the road. And if Grayson Rodriguez found a way to be a way to be healthy or goes to the Angels and gets healthy and sort of finds a way to overcome his injury issues, I think the Orioles will definitely be kicking themselves about this move in the long run. Now, of course, Whether that would have happened while he was in the with the Orioles, who knows? So obviously it's not exactly a fully fair comparison, but the Orioles will, I think, sort of be feeling that regret if he does, find a way to resolve his injury issues long term, and sort of demonstrate the talent level that we all know Grayson Rodriguez has. So. And I guess I will close here a little bit just by talking about this really does end the mark of sort of a negative and frustrating and disappointing era for Grayson Rodriguez here in Baltimore. Of course, he was a high school draftee. The Orioles were, I think really, really excited. There was so much excitement about Grayson Rodriguez just throwing 100 coming out of high school, given his stuff, his weapons, the variety of pitches, and just the stuff was outstanding. And we had glimpses of a Hall of Fame type pitcher here in Baltimore. And it's unfortunate that that sort of Hall of Fame caliber potential. Um, was never fully brought out to fruition here. Now, whether, this is a Grayson health thing predominantly or an Orioles health program thing predominantly, of course, I cannot comment on any of that. Or conditioning or, whatever metrics the Orioles are using to try to keep players healthy or strength and conditioning programs, metrics, science, etc. Of course, I can't really speak to that, but this is really a disappointing end because it wasn't that long ago. He was our yeah, he had to be our game 2 starter in the playoffs against the Rangers, and of course, he was disappointing and didn't pitch very well, and that was kind of upsetting. But we've known for so long how talented he was, and we just really all we had hoped for was for him to be able to stay on the field, and pitch and to do what we knew he was capable of. And he really never strung any consistency together, where he was able to do that, where he was really able to show his potential, his caliber. Um, and yeah, the Orioles really had, and I think Oriole fans really had so many high ambitions and high hopes. And this is just a really sad sort of, especially given that he did not pitch at all over the last season. Now, for him personally, I'm sure it's kind of disappointing. If I was him, I probably would not be excited to go to the Angels, just given they're not a very good team. They're not likely to be competitive in the next couple years. Um, but maybe that's what he needs. Maybe that's somehow helpful. He's going to get plenty of opportunity to start. If he is healthy, I'm sure he will be in the rotation. But yeah, it's just, but and maybe a change will be good for him. And then when he is a free agent in 2030, he'll be in a great position. And maybe the Angels will have won something or made it to the playoffs or something. I doubt it, but it's possible. But it seems like and it felt like things were not on the right track for him here in Baltimore. So maybe a change of scenery, maybe being around new doctors and strength and conditioning people will be helpful to him. But it is kind of sad that this is sort of how it ends for him here in Baltimore. We haven't seen him pitch in over a year. He didn't get traded after a postseason performance, or anything like that. I mean, maybe that would make it slightly more sad because why are we trading someone after they had a postseason appearance? But yeah, just in any case, this is kind of like a sad and disappointing thing, and it's part of how baseball works, and it's kind of a reminder that Things are not always fun and games all the time. And, the first part or the first portion of his career has really been he has struggled to sort of get it off the ground and sort of then sort of like be working on all the things that you need to work on to like become a better pitcher and learn how to pitch in the big leagues. And he's just never really gotten an opportunity to do that, so we definitely hope that he gets that opportunity with the Angels. um, but yeah, just I think probably like with him, I'm sure there's sadness and frustration on his part just with how his first few seasons with the injuries have gone. But I know for fans too, we've always been, I think, excited for him to really show what he was capable of. And it's just really unfortunate that other than the glimpses that we got of him here and there, that he's not going to be able to really do that here while in Baltimore. So definitely hope the change of scenery works out for him. Definitely best of luck for him going forward in his career. And with that, we will end it here. So thank you all so much for listening to the show. Please follow the show, give us a 5-star rating and review. We have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe to us over there. Comment with any thoughts that you have. If you want to get in touch with us, feel free to email the show, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at The Warehouse Pod. And thank you all so much for listening. Really appreciate it. This has been The Warehouse Podcast. My name is Jesse, and go O's.